Team, welcome to 10 Talks. Thank you for joining us today. Kathy and I are on our journey to figure out how women win our way. We'd love to have you join us. If you're interested, go to howwomenwin.com. That's howwomenwin.com. We've got a survey where you can answer our 10 questions that are really the outline of this book we're putting together. We want to hear from you. We want to figure this out. We know we don't have the answers. We had a great conversation that we're going to unpack with an Olympic volleyball coach, beach volleyball, gold medal coach for the 2020 Olympics. Her name is Angie, and what a journey she took us on, really talking about her journey to say yes to really competing, caring about herself, her competitiveness, how to change and win, and how to really go from struggle to success. So Kathy, what are your kind of recap that you came out from that conversation?
Well, I thought there were some really interesting and unique points that she brought out, Carlette, that we haven't heard before in terms of women coaching other women. And maybe some of this is because of the sport that she's involved in with beach volleyball. And this is not a joke line, but because of the exposure, physical exposure that women have in beach volleyball. And so just talking about her role she kept using the word relatability, and we asked her to unpack it, and it became certainly about communication and that kind of stuff, but also it became about, she had been a professional beach volleyball player. She knows, and she is a woman, and knows about some of our taboo things we don't get to talk about, cycles and hormones and puffiness and crabbiness and those kinds of things. And really in sport, it's kind of you pretend, particularly with male coaches, that these things don't exist. And every woman is like, wish they didn't, but they do. Yeah. And so that this was part of what made her so effective, both as the Dutch women's national team coach, who coached several of their teams into Olympic contention, and then after leaving the Netherlands and coming and becoming the coach for Alex and April. And so, again, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the taboos, but we are trying to say, hey, what are some of the advantages? What are the things that women do? Can we win? And not having to have topics that are not possible is one of the things where women can bring something to their teams and to the women that they're working with.
Well, and one of her questions was really how to change and win. And a winning strategy for her was to say yes. She really challenged herself instead of being afraid of change or trying to control change or make sure that change was just going the way she wanted it to go. She basically said yes to change and won according to however she figured it out. I mean, she didn't have the answers in any of her journey that she was going for. She went from, being a player, a volleyball, an indoor player, to then going professional and then going into being a pro beach volleyball player and then becoming a coach. I mean, there was this journey that was not already laid out for her. And she's married and has a partner, and they made an agreement that they would always be supportive of each other. I mean, that in itself, just really being able to say yes and have support to it. They talked about they didn't see each other for months at a time. I mean, there was this understanding that they weren't going to be able to say yes and control that everything be exactly the way they wanted it. They went into the fact that we're for each other. We're totally for each other, going big and going for anything. And as partners, we want to never hold each other back. And even as myself, I don't want to be held back. So I think that was really valuable as we as women think about wanting it all and, wanting to have a partner, wanting to have a family, wanting to have this great career. She did a beautiful job of taking us on that journey. And she said it was an evolution, like it was just her learning, having the courage. And mainly she just kept saying it was about saying yes, even though I didn't know exactly what was going to, be the details for it. And it was also about just embracing the challenge and using that competitive spirit to be competitive for what she believed in and going for it rather than being afraid of any of it.
Right. And I think important also because she ended up on this mountaintop. Okay. I mean, she ended up as the gold medal winning coach with a team that was so dominant, more dominant than any beach volleyball team has ever been in an Olympic Games. Just, you know, and so you tend to think, oh, if I just say yes to everything, okay, if I just, you know, go out there and seize the moment and feel the fear and go for it anyway, that everything's going to turn out. And that's not what it means. And that's not what happened. I mean, she talked about in Rio, being in Rio and having her Dutch team underperform where they thought they should have finished and what they had dreamed and trained and worked for. And I'm guessing when she was talking, I thought, this is probably what it's like to lose a political campaign, where you spend years focused on just this one thing. And nothing is going to deter you. Nothing is going to take you off track because you've got this one thing and you got this Olympic Games and you have these 3 or 4 days. And this is years of your life. And now you failed. And so, yeah, I think it's important too. This is why it takes such courage, I think, to just say yes, because just saying yes doesn't mean you're going to succeed. Mm-hmm. Just saying yes could be just bearing your heart and soul and passion and everything else because you didn't. Yeah, that's where it's courageous.
Well, and she talked about the struggle from struggle to success, and very much the Rio failure, if you want to hold it that way, of failing expectations, not anything about the competition, right? I mean, that is what happens is, there's going to be wins and losses, but the expectation was so powerful for her. She didn't deny herself that feeling of, great letdown. Instead, she used it and said, I will never let that happen to me again. And she had no idea when the Rio experience occurred that she was ever going to have the opportunity to go to the Olympics again. She just knew that she was going to use that to really live with no regrets. And so she started actually practicing the no regrets very early after that. So I think that's a great winning strategy all of us can use, is that when we do struggle and we find success, or we do struggle and we make peace with the learning that comes out of a struggle, how do we start living differently because of it? And then where's that going to take us? We don't know, but at least we're changed because of what we experienced in a really empowering way.
Yeah. And I thought another interesting thing, again, we're all looking for hacks, right? We're looking for, what do we do? Okay. Because saying, okay, I'm going to accept this challenge and I'm going to be ready for failure, and I failed before and all those things. It's like, okay, what's the pragmatic, what do I do? And one of the things that she found that worked for her was journaling. Was just forcing herself to sit down and put the fear on the page, put the doubts on the page, put everything that could go wrong on the page. And she's, we hear so much about sleep, but it's terribly underrated. She slept great at the Olympic Games, all right, which is probably totally associated at being at her best during the day. And the reason she was able to do that is because she got rid of it, took the demon out of it by writing it down. Again, it may not work for everybody, but I thought that was an insightful hack, if you will, of what do I do with this anxiety?
So she said when she wrote it down, it took the power away, that no longer was it in her head going over and over and over, which she was staying up all night, because she was thinking about it, she wasn't sleeping. And so the winning strategies that I learned from her are certainly journaling is fantastic for facing your fears, getting them all out, writing them down so that they're out of you and they're, you can do whatever with them. she really talked about preparation. And so I think that honoring her fear and getting out, okay, I'm afraid if this happens, she said, okay, then I prepared for everything to happen. So it wasn't that she just journaled, wrote it down, and then expected everything great to start happening. She used the journaling as the entry point to really face her fear, get it out of her head, figure it out, put it on paper, then process from what she did with that. Okay, is there any part of this that I need to prepare myself for? Preparation was huge, and rituals and routines. She set herself up from the morning she woke up with the alarm clock to when she went to bed at night. There was a structure. She could count on it. And she was committed to it. From, you talk about discipline and commitment. She said she tried to journal many, many times and, would try and didn't like it. It didn't feel right, didn't really enjoy it. Getting ready for the Olympics, there was so much at stake. She said, I'll try anything. I want to be set up for success. So she made a commitment for 30 days. And I think that is such a gift that she gave us, is that everything she shared with us, none of it happened easily. None of it was casual. None of it felt good. She constantly referenced how hard everything was. And so she was embracing the challenge and making a commitment to 30 days, being disciplined about it, pushing even when it didn't feel good. And it was never about the feeling. It was about a decision that she made, and she honored herself by really being disciplined to follow through with what was important to her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also I thought she shared some interesting things about just relatability. Again, maybe an overused word if we don't unpack it, but what does it mean to as a coach, to be demanding?
Mm-hmm.
And coaches need to be demanding and ask for accountability without being mean or hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
And so how is that done? Especially women with women, where we can pick something out of a tone of voice or a gesture or an eyebrow or
Mm-hmm.
something that all of a sudden we're cut and we're hurt, and now the relationship is broken. And so now we're not a broken relationship for women will sap us of our competitiveness. It just will. It's like
of everything. I mean, our heart is now broken, and it's like we can't get out there and be our best, and we don't feel like our best.
And so, how did she do that? And again, referencing people she learned from,
Mm-hmm.
Coaches who had coached her, who were very unemotional but factual, and saying, if we want to go here,
Mm-hmm.
this is what needs to happen. And this is where we are. This is where we want to go. And again, for extroverted people and people who are generally emotional, this is a real difficult task. Mm-hmm. is to keep our emotions out of the conversation and out of the exchange, so that it doesn't start to feel personal and cross. Mm-hmm. I had athletes that I knew they didn't hear what I said, mm-hmm. because I would be, very animated with, the game plan, set the middle. And the athlete would say, you hate me, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like, no, I want you to set the middle. Okay. But what she heard was the tone. Mm-hmm. And so again, just really working at, keeping yourself in a pretty thin, not thin, but narrow, because it's deep, but it's a deep band, but it's not a frustrated, anxious, angry band of feedback loop.
Yeah. And she talked very much about the tone and delivery. She said it's all about the tone and delivery, because mm-hmm. she's a relationship person. And boy, for 1 minute, if she thinks you're yelling at her, she's not going to be able to do anything because you're yelling at her. And so I just think that's so powerful and a great lesson for us to learn. And the other thing that she really talked about is her support team and her support system. And that she learned that when she went overseas to coach, and really how powerful it is to invest in having, a sports psych and a medical team, and checking in with everybody, and, the trainer, and really engaging all of that information to empower the athlete, so that it's not that the trainer's saying one thing and they're disconnected from the coach doesn't know what's happening, and they just come in and completely train them differently. She spoke about just the power of a great team all being on the same page, which is all about communication. And really that anchored in the mission and the passion to go for this great goal that you're going for, and being in relationship not only with the person, but in the purpose that you're going for.
Well, and again, on this How Women Win Our Way, women are, it's the web. It's the web of interconnected relationships. And so facilitative leadership, stereotype alert, comes easier to us. We are comfortable being facilitators as opposed to being at the top of the food chain all the time. In fact, we may be a little bit uncomfortable being at the top of the food chain. But if we're in this web of interconnected relationships, boy, that fits right into the sweet spot of how we view the world and how we want to live our lives.
Well, team, if you want to hear the rest of the story, we had a great conversation with Angie, just sharing her journey from being an athlete to becoming a coach for a gold medal Olympic team. And so now it's up to you. Go out and figure out how you win. We are on the journey. Kathy and I are committed to this, discovering how women win our way. Love to have you on our journey. Go to howwomenwin.com. And thank you, Kathy, as always, for just sharing this time with me, with our team, and most importantly, for saying yes to me when I ask you to go on this journey with me and to write your second book. Greatly appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Carlette. It's a journey that's worth traveling, and you're a partner who has been not only a good leader but a good facilitator. So thank you for asking me to be part of it.
The power of team. I think that's definitely what women thrive under. You and I are living that model as well. And so, team, we pass to you. It's up to you. Go out and have a great week, and know that you are so worth it. Go for it. Go for what matters to you. No regrets. Thank you. Have a great week.